Well, hello, everybody. My name is Elena G. Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions and author of Networking for Nerds, which is a book that was published by Wiley this summer. It's a real delight and an honor today to speak with you about how you can transition your career beyond academia. And I'd like to thank my partners in this webinar, the AIP Career Network, which includes all of those organizations and publication that you see below you. These are fantastic resources for you as members, as prospective members, and I hope you'll take advantage of what they have to offer. And so what we're going to be doing today is talking about how you can build and craft a strategic career path that will take you beyond academia, but if you would like to, come back to academia in the later term of your life as well. And just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. If you can't see, or if for some reason you can't hear me, simply log out and log back in to refresh your page. If you have any questions, you can type them in the questions panel, and I'll be answering them at the conclusion of our talk today. So let's dive right into this. And what we're going to be doing today is looking at what industries want you, why quote unquote industry wants you. And that what I mean by that is why anything outside of academia is interested in you and your intelligence and your skills and your expertise. The whole package that you provide, your brand, which is your promise of value, we're going to be looking at why industry is really excited about that and why they covet you, why they recruit you, and why they pay you well to solve really amazing problems. And part of that is going to be developing a way to identify and articulate our own true value so we really understand what it is that we could do for the other party. And this will help us determine the right career choices and paths for ourselves. We're going to discuss crafting our transition plan, which of course is personalized for ourselves. And then we're always going to be open-minded about leaving the door open to coming back to academia later in life. You know, I just wrote an article that was just published a month or so ago for Science Magazine about scientists and engineers who worked in industry for many years and then came back, or if you want to say came to academia for the first time later in their life. That was what they hadn't necessarily planned to do that. But let me tell you, all that experience they had outside of academia, in industry and government and the nonprofit sectors, were appreciated by different academic institutions, and they were able to forge a really amazing path with that. So we want to keep our eyes open and keep our doors open if we decide to come back or come to academia later in life. We start off with this webinar by looking at the question that defines every job in any part of the known universe. And I know some of you have joined me on webinars before, so you know the answer to this. I'm just going to jump right to it. The purpose of any job anywhere, no matter the sector, no matter the ecosystem, no matter the industry, is to solve problems. Fundamentally, you strip everything else away. Your job when I hire you into my company is to solve problems. And if you can communicate that to me when we're talking via the interview process or informally, like through informational interviews or when we're networking, this is going to help me to see how you might be a better person, might solve better problems and solve problems better, more cheaply, better, faster, easier, more innovatively in my company. And so whenever you go out for an interview, whenever you're talking with somebody and discussing ways that you might be able to collaborate, of course, that's the essence of networking, you're always seeking to find out what are the problems that need to be solved by that party? What are the problems that that institution or that company or that enterprise needs to solve? Who do they solve them for? We're going to go into more details about this, but just remember that below the fundamental core of who you are is to be a problem solver. And if you can communicate that in the language of the industry that you're interested in going into, you will be a winner in the way that you want to be. In other words, you'll be able to land the jobs you want in the industries that desire you and the industries that you desire. And what industries do desire? I know you're probably saying to yourself, Elena, what can I do? What are the types of different industries that might be interested in me with a physical science background? You know, when I graduated with my math degree, I asked my math advisor, what kinds of jobs could I get? What are the opportunities for me? And he literally turned to me and he said, Elena, there's nothing you can do with your math degree. He actually said that. I know, it still boggles my mind. He said that the only thing I could do with a math degree was become a professor, become a teacher, or go into actuarial studies, so calculating insurance times tables. That was the extent of any job that I could ever get. In the history of humankind and all that would ever be, I could only be those three things with a math degree. And I know you're laughing really, really loudly right now. I can't hear you, but I'm going to imagine that you are, because I'm laughing inside really loudly at the idea that he thought that there was only those three things that I could do. And when I think about what you can do with a physical science background, with a science background, more broadly with an engineering and a mathematics background, all of you that are listening here today, it really boggles the mind. See, my advisor was like a two-dimensional ant. He only knew two dimensions, and those two dimensions were the tenure track in a faculty for a faculty position. That's all he knew. He didn't realize that there was a third dimension and a fourth dimension and a fifth, sixth, and 17th dimension of ecosystems and industries that would be of interest to me as a math major, and more importantly, would covet me as a math major, because that's all he knew. He only knew academia. And that's the challenge that we face having gotten our degrees in academia, is working with PIs and advisors and mentors who may only know about the academic experience and may only measure success in their own minds as being in part of academia. But what I want to elucidate today for you is to help you understand that you are more than academia. You can do so much more if you choose. And these are just a few of the different industries and areas that I've uncovered as a science journalist for physicists and more broadly for scientists and engineers. These are the different industries that hire people with a physical sciences background and more broadly with a STEM degree. And I want to tell you where I got this data from, and so that you can actually take a look at it. So I write a column for the American Physical Society for APS News called Profiles in Versatility, and I'll send you a link to that as well. And this column that I've been writing for, I think, 8 years now, it's all about physicists in non-traditional careers. So physicists in all these different types of industries. These are the industries that I write about in my column. So these are all, what you see in front of you are all the different industries that I have heard and interviewed people who have a physics or a physical sciences degree or background who've gone into careers in these areas. And it's amazing to me that after 8 years, I still have not repeated an industry. That's how amazingly broad your physical sciences background can provide you in terms of accessing industries. So some of these you probably could guess. I mean, you could probably guess that with a physical sciences degree, you can go into big data, you can go into science writing, consulting, working for a company like McKinsey or Boston or Bain or Booz Allen Hamilton. Of course, you know about teaching. I didn't put medical physics on here, but that's quite obviously a really fabulous career that you can go into. But some of you other scientists listening here today might not have realized how valuable you are to the oil and gas industry, or to the automotive, or to aeronautics, or to aerospace and airplane companies, or to banking companies, or even to biotech companies. They love physicists. Or how about consumer products? I interviewed a physicist who works for Procter & Gamble designing razors. And they're the sharpest razors on the planet, the same razors you use to shave your face, your legs, and your back. He is designing and using thin films and all sorts of interesting physics and physics problem solving to make these razors better for you. I know physicists who work in the food industry, who work in museum design of exhibits, but also restoration and preservation of exhibits and pieces. And then I've interviewed physicists who work in international aid and development, who work in law enforcement, forensics, all sorts of different areas. This is just a limited list, but I just wanted you to get an idea. I wanted you to get a taste of what industries are waiting for you with your background in science and engineering. What industries are waiting for you to reach out to them so that they can find out how you can solve their problems in a better way than somebody who doesn't have the kind of background that you have. So all we need to do to start off, once we figure out that there are these industries, is we need to figure out how to understand our own value and to be able to articulate that value in the appropriate way and the appropriate time and the appropriate form when there comes an opportunity for us to do that. So first off, we have to recognize what our value is. Now, scientists and engineers have a very unique value proposition. The value proposition that you have is, first and foremost, you're a problem solver, but secondly, you are actually the value creators of society. I want you to think about that for a moment. You create the value in society. And what I mean by that is, as a scientist and as an engineer, your aim, your inertia, your momentum is moved towards always looking for a new scientific discovery or an engineering innovation. It's all about what can I uncover from nature, or how can I utilize nature in a new way to solve problems, right? And that is the creation of value. All the other people that exist, all the other professionals that exist within the industrial complex, the people on the marketing side, the supply chain side, the quality side, the manufacturing side, everything else, all those other people, they are there to take the value that you have created as a scientist and engineer and commercialize it, get it into the hands of the customer who will pay for it. But this is very significant, because if you're the ones who create the value, that means that you actually have substantially more career advancing opportunities and control over your career than you might have even realized. So while you think that you're languishing in a postdoc that you're not happy about, or you're studying something and you're in the academic experience and you're thinking, you know what, academia is not for me, what else is out there? The first thing I want you to recognize is that because you are the knowledge creators, because you are the value creators in society, you hold the cards. You have a lot of power and control over where you want to do your career, where you want to focus your career, what industries you want to go into for your career. And that all it comes down to is how do you communicate it. And really, I just want to also give you this message, this really important message, is that you have to do what you love in your life, or your life will be miserable, you will be unproductive, and you will be fired. And we don't want you to be fired. You're awesome. You're an amazing physicist and physical scientist and engineer. And so the key here is we want to define our own success. And really it is up to us to define our success, to define what we consider to be success. Not my math advisor told me. He considered success to be only one of those three choices. But I didn't listen to him. I went and found my own success and my own bliss within my careers, because I've had multiple careers, as most people often do. And this has helped me to be even more productive and to be even more successful and to access and get and even create more opportunities for myself. So we want to define our own success, not allow ourselves to tie ourselves to the definition of success that another party might have, especially if it feels limiting to us. And we need to understand our value and then develop the skills to articulate that value to decision makers so they can understand how we can add value to their organization. So what is your value? Let's talk a little bit more about what kinds of skills you have as a scientist and an engineer in and beyond academia, and why I, for example, somebody in industry might be interested in you. Well, as I mentioned, you're an excellent problem solver, and the beauty of your problem solving ability is that you can actually move your problem solving ability to multiple ecosystems, and you can take what you've learned in physics or math or other areas and can just transfer it to the different ecosystem, to the system, to the different system or the different dimension or the different sector to solve the problems. And what's great also is that you bring your unique expertise and skills and background and pedigree and credentials with you to be able to look at the problem in different ways that other people, other professionals who don't have that degree or that package of experience are not able to see. So you have this excellent problem solving ability, and quite frankly, industry representatives, hiring managers, decision makers, they know this. They hire physicists to work in insurance companies to look at huge scale, big scale problems associated with like insuring, like particularly the reinsurance industry, which is companies like Swiss Re and Munich Re. They don't just insure companies, they insure the insurance companies, and they insure countries against hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes. So they need physicists, people who understand the physical world, to be able to look and analyze problems, to be able to look at the probability and statistics associated with that environment, with that ecosystem. That's an example of transferring your skills as a physicist or a physical scientist or engineer into a new ecosystem. It also demonstrates your adaptability and your adaptiveness and your flexibility, that you can move back and forth across ecosystems. You have excellent critical thinking and analysis skills. That's pretty obvious. And what's amazing to me is that you also have a disciplined approach, especially for those of you who have gone on for advanced degrees. Just the fact that you got the advanced degree in STEM field, and in particular in physical sciences, a master's degree or a PhD demonstrates that you are laser focused, that you are dedicated to your craft, that you will stop at nothing to solve the problem. It's very disciplined. You would not have chosen to get a master's or a PhD in the physical sciences if you were not totally disciplined and self-disciplined and self-motivated. And these are skills that industry looks for. And believe it or not, they're hard to come by from people. And that's why this package really, really distinguishes you. You also have excellent computing skills, and if you don't have them, you have a way of getting them. You can solve a problem from the ground up. You don't necessarily look or accept things just the way they are. You're always looking for new opportunities to solve the problem in a new way. You are holistic and detail-oriented in your problem solving. As I mentioned, you also understand how the physical world works. So you would know, like for example, when I interviewed a physicist who works for an airplane company, a manufacturer of airplanes, he was telling me how he knows, what it means, how much weight, what that means when an airplane, when the FAA or an airplane company says, we have this much weight and we can allow only this much weight on an airplane. He knows exactly what that means in real terms. And also how to translate that to other issues relating to baggage and people who are bringing dogs and elephants with them on the airplane. You have excellent project management and teamwork skills because you've worked on large-scale, diverse projects across continents, across cultures, with multifunctional and multicultural teams. That's the beauty. That's one of the best things I think that you as a scientist or an engineer get out of being a scientist or an engineer and studying STEM is that it is naturally a diverse enterprise. You are naturally interacting with people from all countries, all nations, all religions, all cultures, all languages. And I just love that aspect of it. And if I'm working for a company that's a multinational company, for you to come forward and mention that and let me know that on your resume, on your CV, or in your cover letter, and ultimately in the interview, that you've worked with multicultural groups, that you've worked on organization, worked on teams with people who speak different languages, that's going to be something very important for me to know. That's going to help me to convince me that I would want to hire you because I need somebody who can work in a multicultural environment very well. And you have that. You also have access to huge networks. You believe it or not, you are networked in and you continue to network. And this is so important because I need to know that you're resourceful. If you can't solve this problem because of this little piece, this X, I know that I'm not just hiring you for your brain, but I'm hiring you for all the brains that you have connected to and have connections with, so that if you can't find X, you know somebody who would be able to help you find X. And that's really important too. And ultimately, you also know that your work has everyday applications, right? So somebody who's working on thin films knows that that can be applied to multiple ecosystems, including the razor industry. Now, beyond science, you actually have a lot of other skills too. So you have your science skills, your skills of being a scientist or engineer, but you also have other skills that you've gained from studying science and from pursuing science and engineering, which a lot of people often don't think about. They often neglect to even mention on their resume. They often neglect to even mention it in their interviews. They don't even think about that they have these skills. And guess what? You do. And this is another aspect of what I'm looking for. When I hire you into my company, I'm looking for these skills. I'm looking for people who are good scientists, who can take their scientific problem solving and apply it to new ecosystems, and who have these other business related and soft skills. So, and the beauty of science and engineering is that you've gotten these. Your PI may not have mentioned that you have these, but you actually do. Think about it. If you've given a poster, if you've given a talk, even if you've just given a talk to a couple of people at the journal club within your department, you've developed excellent oral and written communication skills. By leading a team, by being a part of a team, by dealing with conflict on a team, you've developed leadership, team building, and conflict resolution. Certainly if you have a PI, you have conflict resolution experience. If you have a PI, you also have customer relations experience. You have project management experience, which is no small feat. Project management is actually an entire enterprise, and it is something that you can actually get a degree in, or not a degree, but you can get a sort of a certification in it. And it's really amazing because when you are able to say that you have project management experience, the eyes light up from the decision makers and from the recruiters, because not only do you have that scientific problem solving and that scientific background, but they know that you can lead a project from idea phase to commercialization phase. If you've been on a grant, if you've done anything with grants or finances or anything associated with raising money, like for SPS for your chapter, you have some rudimentary accounting and finance experience. Hiring and training, if you've trained people within your lab, proteges, or within your research group or on certain pieces of equipment, if you've hired them, if you've fired them, that's human resources and training. If you've done any sort of inventory for your lab, for your research group, that's procurement and inventory. Risk management, oops, the Ebola falls on the floor, what am I going to do? That's risk management. Also, if you have a PI, that's risk management as well. Sales and marketing, public relations and event management, customer relations and grant writing. These are all things that come naturally from doing science, from being a scientist, from being an engineer. This is no small potatoes here. This is big potatoes. So we want to make sure that we actually let people know about these things. And some of you have seen this slide before, so I'm just going to quickly go through this. This is what we think about as we start to market ourselves to these different industries that might be of interest to us. We think about what our brand is, and our brand is simply our promise of value. I have a brand and you have a brand, and it's our promise to deliver excellence, dependability, and expertise in whatever we do. That's the promise to deliver excellence, dependability, and expertise in whatever we do. And it's how we deliver that value and that excellence and that dependability and that expertise. And brands are about expectations. So if I work with you or if I get to know you and I see how great you are and I see what a great work ethic you are, I see how intelligent and clever and creative you are, how innovative you are in solving problems, I'm going to expect that the next time I engage you, you're going to deliver on that promise of value. And indeed, if you do that, then the more I engage you, the more I'm going to want to hire you. And that's all about becoming a known quantity, because the more I know you and know your brand, I'm going to be more likely to hire you or at least invite you for an interview versus somebody who might come in through the black hole that is the website when a job is advertised. So if I'm company X and I advertise a job, I might get 1,000 resumes that come in through that black hole of the website. I don't know who those people are as the decision maker. But if I've already been engaging you and I know your brand, I know your promise of value and what you could do for me, I'm going to go towards you first rather than those 100 people that came in through the website. The second piece of this is the attitude, which is actually a very coveted characteristic, very hard to find. And this is a message I want you to remember, that good talent is very hard to find. Good talent is extremely hard to find. And what I mean by that is talent that is people who are talented, that have skills, that have experience, that have expertise, and cleverness and innovativeness and inventiveness and creativity and intelligence, but who also work well with people, who are enthusiastic, who are excited to be there, who want to alleviate and mitigate risk and alleviate and mitigate conflict, who want to move forward to solving the problem. This is an attitude, and this positive attitude is the calling card of your brand. It's how you communicate your promise of value to the world. It's extremely coveted because I can teach you how to code. I can teach you how to use this instrument. But what I can't teach you as a decision maker, as your boss, I cannot ever teach you to have a good attitude. So we always want to walk into experiences metaphorically and literally with a good attitude. Show people that you are excited to be there, you're enthusiastic, you work well with others, you're looking forward to be able to interact with others and make a difference in the system that you're in. And some people have asked, by the way, I just noticed a couple of questions came in. This is being recorded and will be available later on. So I just wanted to let you know about that. The last aspect of this, this quantum connection, this trifecta that I call, is the reputation, your reputation. Your reputation is actually your most important asset. It's more important than what you know. It's what people know about your brand and your attitude. That's what gets you access to opportunities, especially hidden opportunities, and especially opportunities in what seem like unusual directions or unusual career paths or unusual industries for people with science and engineering degrees or people with physical science backgrounds. So what people know about you will help you get opportunities, and what people know about you in a negative sense, if you have a negative brand, a negative attitude, that translates to a negative reputation. You'll find doors are closing, or the doors, you might not even know that they exist. So we want to make sure that you're always you're always in the running for the opportunity by having a stellar reputation. So remember, you have a brand, your promise of value, an attitude, which is how you communicate your brand, always has to be very positive, and your reputation, which is what people know about your brand, and that's why it's your most important asset. So this is a skill inventory matrix, and actually this is something that's very useful for you that you can use to start thinking about what are those different skills that I have that make up my brand. And this is a private document. You don't ever have to show this to your mommy, your daddy, or your PI. You can keep this for yourself. And you know what? I use this for myself, and you use it, make a master skill inventory matrix on your computer, and every time you have an accomplishment or every time you realize that you used a new skill, you can add to it. So let me show you how you work this. So first of all, the first column in red, which it says experience and job, what you're going to do there is you're going to list every job you've had, every experience you had, where you gained experience. So that could be an RA-ship, a TA-ship, it could be volunteer experience, it could be president of the Society of Physics Students, it could be as a blogger that you were doing on the side, it could be an internship, a fellowship. It doesn't have to be a science-related job. It doesn't even have to be a job where you were paid money. If you worked for McDonald's for 2 weeks when you were 18 years old, put that on there. Remember, this is a private document. What we're doing is we're remembering all of the different times that we gained quote-unquote experience, and now we're going to tease out of this what we gained from that experience that might be useful for industry when we go to market ourselves to industry and when we go to research what industries we might want to work for. So if the first column after the experience column are the technical skills. So we want to identify from those different experiences and jobs and fellowships and RA-ships and so on and so forth, what are the different technology or technological related skills that we gained from that experience. And those include the skills of being a scientist, which includes research skills, data collection and analysis skills, field work skills, so maybe using and tinkering and even troubleshooting and fixing and even building certain instruments. It could be engineering skills, machining skills, and then of course computing skills such as languages, software packages, platforms, and even social media you could even put under there. So those are your science and technological skills. That's what you want to identify. What did I gain from these different jobs? And then we want to look at our business skills. And that was similar to the list that I just had before. And these are the different types of business skills that you might have gained from your different experiences. And remember, don't undersell yourself in your own private skill inventory matrix. If you remember back 3 years ago when you were a postdoc and you were in charge of the inventory for the whole lab, write that down. Make a note of that. That's why it's useful to keep this going for your whole career and keep it handy so that when you do have an experience or a special accomplishment or success in your day or in your week or even in your month, you can put it down on this list and remember, oh yeah, this week I was able to gain risk management experience because I was able to handle a zombie boss. Now you also have soft skills. Now since this is a private document also, it really doesn't matter which column you put these things in, but we want to be thinking about them. Soft skills could include oral and written communications, the leadership, the team building, the diplomacy, and the conflict resolution. So just remember when you gain those experiences, write those down in that column or in another. And the final present column that you see here, because there's actually two hidden columns, which I'm going to tell you about in a moment. But the final column that you actually see here are the characteristics. This is so important. You need to be able to identify what did you gain about, what did you learn about yourself from that experience. When I did this postdoc, I learned that I'm really good against a deadline, or I'm really detail oriented, or I'm really good at being, I'm very results driven, or I'm really good when I work independently, or I'm really good when I work with an exceedingly large team, like if I'm at CERN, right, and like I have 500 people on the paper with me. I'm really good in that type of environment. So just make a note of what you noticed about yourself from the experience, or what characteristics you gained from that experience, because this will be very helpful, and it'll also be useful to help to describe yourself in your documents for job searching and career development, such as your resume and CV, your LinkedIn profile, and your cover letters and cold emails. Now, as I mentioned to you, you guys know me, so I like to throw a curveball here and there, even though I don't know much about baseball. But there are two hidden columns to the skill inventory matrix. And since you're listening today, you get to know what those two hidden columns are. And I know you're totally excited and you're sitting at the edge of your seat right now. So let me tell you what those hidden columns are, because I am so freaking excited about them, because this is actually where the rubber meets the road. The metaphors go to the max, and you actually get a chance to start thinking about what are the right industries for me. Me. So the first hidden column is the love column, the love column. And what you want to do is you want to take a look at all those experiences and jobs and things that you've done in your life, going back to that McDonald's, and think about, what did I love about that experience? I loved working on a team with 500 people. I loved being able to travel. I loved working in an office with a window. Be very granulistic. Be very detail-oriented in thinking about, what did you love? I loved working with a boss who had this type of communication style, or I loved being able to use this skill or this particular instrument or do this particular task. Write out what you loved. You need to know and be able to see with your own eyeballs what it was that you loved about those experiences, because quite frankly, with your physical sciences background, the world is your oyster, and the opportunities for you to look for jobs are literally endless. You could potentially, I listed that list of industries, but there are 150 other industries in an umbrella way, just industry types that I didn't enter that you could easily find a job in and are easily coveted for jobs and are easily qualified for jobs in those industries. And beyond that, the types of jobs are potentially infinite. So we have to put some boundaries on this, or else the problem is not going to be able to be solved, right? We're problem solvers. And the problem here we're trying to solve is, how do we transition out of academia? How do we find the right industries and the right sectors and the right companies for us? So first, know thyself. So once we know what we love, we can start looking for industries and companies within those industries that would support those loves, right? Because we want to be happy in our career. We want to pursue a blissful career or a blissful set of careers where we can be productive and feel that we are contributing. So then the last column is actually the most important column of all the columns. It's also hidden. It's a clandestine column, so I know you're excited about that. This clandestine column is the hate column, the hate column. This is the most important column because this allows us to put borders on the types of industries that we might want to go into. And here we want to be very granulistic and detail-oriented in thinking about, what did we hate from the different jobs, experiences, and so on and so forth that we've had. So if you hated the fact that you worked in the basement and didn't have a view of the outdoors for 18 hours a day, write that down. If you hated the way your boss communicated to you, write that down and write what it was specifically about her or his communication style that you didn't like that. Write down, did you hate the fact that you had to travel? Did you hate the fact that you didn't travel? So write these things down. And then the other things you can start thinking about is, let's say you worked on a project in a particular industry. Let's say it was oil and gas. You worked on a project, let's say through your advisor, you were doing a project relating to oil and gas. And you know what? You found that you really didn't like the oil and gas industry for moral reasons or for other reasons that you just specifically didn't appreciate. So write that down, that you don't want to work for the oil and gas industry, that you would not find that productive for you to do that. This is important for you to recognize. We're going to see something similar in the next slide. But so I want you to keep this in mind. And somebody just asked me why I had those last columns, the love column and the hate column, secreted away, because frankly, I wanted to just keep it as a surprise for you. It's not meant to be secret for you. You can write that down. But these are the most important columns, and I just put them off to the side because I wanted to make a big celebration of them. Okay, so now there's another tool that is very, very useful for you in your analysis of what your skills are and what your opportunities would be, and it's called the SWOT Analysis, and that stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. Strengths and weaknesses are intrinsic to us. Opportunities and threats are extrinsic, and this is actually a very common tool that's used in marketing We look at marketing. We look at the strengths and weaknesses of our product in the market. We look at the opportunities for our product, and we look at the threats to our product. Well, we are going to look at this in terms of ourselves, and so we're going to take the data that we've collected from the skill inventory matrix, and we're going to look at our strengths. We're going to put down what are our strengths, what are the skills that we like using, what are the skills that we are good at, what are other strengths that we have. We're also going to be able to identify weaknesses. Maybe there's something you would like to do, for example, maybe program in Java, but you haven't learned Java. Maybe that's a weakness. Or maybe you've noticed a weakness in the way you've resolved conflicts, so you can write this down. This is also a private document for you. Opportunities I'm going to come back to in a moment, but I want to just talk about threats, because threats, since they are extrinsic, you don't have to look at as a threat as a bad thing. But what a threat can mean is something that would potentially derail you from the opportunities that you are seeking. Now, a great example of that would be, let's say for an opportunity that you would be interested in, based on what you've identified as your strengths, as well as your weaknesses, you've gone through the skill inventory matrix and you've realized that a great opportunity for you would be being an astronaut. You'd love to be an astronaut. That's a great opportunity for you. Well, that's great that you identified that. But now let's look at potential threats to that opportunity. So one example of a threat would be there aren't that many astronaut jobs out there. So there's only a few that are coming, although I just read yesterday, quite frankly, that the NASA is about to open up its astronaut program again. So for those of you that are interested in astronauts, you can start applying, I think, November 18th on usajobs.gov. But there still aren't that many. Let's say there's 30 astronaut jobs that are going to be opening up in the next 16 months. That's not a lot of jobs, right? So that's a threat. That means that if we want that job, we are going to focus on that. We're going to focus on getting that astronaut job. But because there aren't that many, we have to be wise and we have to look at other opportunities. Another threat to the astronaut job that you might be pursuing could be the following scenario. Let's say you live in New Jersey, and let's say you want or you need to be in New Jersey. You need to live in New Jersey. Maybe your family's there. Maybe you need to live in New Jersey because you like New Jersey tomatoes and chemical plants. I can say that because I'm from New Jersey. So you like those things about New Jersey, or you need to be in New Jersey because you need those things around you. Well, then that's going to be a threat to you pursuing the opportunity of an astronaut as well, because there aren't astronaut training positions necessarily in New Jersey. Right? They're in Texas, they're in Florida, maybe at JPL, and maybe a couple times in Washington, D.C. and other places, but they're probably not going to be in New Jersey as far as I know. So that's a threat to that opportunity. So once we establish our strengths, our weaknesses, then we can start looking at what opportunities might be right for us, and then we can look at what threats there could be to those opportunities, and this will allow us to create a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and a plan E for ourselves. Because as scientists and engineers, we are always problem solvers, and we recognize that if one career path is not available to us or may not be available to us, or their window of time could close, we have to be ready for other things. So let's talk about how to make that transition. How do we learn about industry? In other words, how do we learn about the problems? How do we learn about the opportunities that would be right for us? First of all, we have to understand what is success. How is success defined in quote-unquote industry? So in academia, we know that success is defined by papers, talks, proteges, grants, committees, classes that you teach, and so on and so forth. But in industry, success is defined by market-driven problem solving. So that means that the problem solving that you're doing, the value that you're creating, has to lead to a customer-centric solution. In other words, a product or a service that somewhere down the line, someone or something, meaning an entity or a company, will pay for. So money has to be shown. That's what we mean by profits over cachet. It's show me the money. The problems in industry are all about increasing sales, cutting costs, and beating the competition. So we have to recognize that. We have to understand, what does industry consider to be important. Then we have to start learning about what our selected industry is. And through networking, and I've given a number of webinars for the AIP Career Network on networking, so you can go back and watch them. We can talk with people, we can have informational interviews with people about the different industries that they are in. And what we're looking for in doing that, the information and the data that we're trying to collect are basically what are the problems that are solved in this industry or that need to be solved in this industry, or what are the problems that are languishing that can't be solved right now because they don't have the skill set to solve it. What is the language of that industry? What's the vocabulary that they use? This is very important because as you transition out of academia, you're going to learn that a lot of the words that you use to describe X and Y in academia, whether it's skills or tasks or projects, are described in different words. There's actually a completely different set of vocabulary used in industry. And a great example of that happened to me when I was transitioning out of academia myself. So I worked for many years for the University of Arizona, first for the Department of Physics and then for the College of Science. And I was gussing up my resume one day and I asked a friend of mine if she could look it over. And she said, you know what, I see a problem here. I see something that we need to change on your resume. And she changed one word on my resume, and that resulted in me getting 50% or more invitations to interview. And that's of course what the resume or the CV does. It invites somebody to learn more about me, to entice them to invite me for an interview. And so what was that word that she changed on my resume? I had been saying on my resume, I wrote, created a marketing program that recruited students. But of course, in industry, students are not what they prize. Customers are what industry prizes. So she changed the word students to customers. So now my resume said, created and launched a marketing program that resulted in a 100% increase in customer recruitment and retention. Now, who were the customers I was talking about? Well, as an employee of a university, my customers are the students. So I just simply used the vocabulary of industry, i.e. the word customer, so that when I was showing my resume to people outside of academia, they would know I already knew their language, I already was solving problems that they were needed to solve, in this case, recruiting new customers, and therefore they were able to connect the dots that I could jump into their organization and into their industry quickly. And that's what we're doing when we learn the language of the industry. We use that language in our marketing documents and in our discussions with people from industry. What we're doing is we're connecting the dots for them and making it much easier for them to see and envision you in the position that you want in that company. So another thing that we're also looking to do in our to learn about our selected industry are who are the major employers, who are the startups, what are the trade and professional associations, where are the industry clusters? You know, if you were really interested in working in biotech, then you would need to know in the United States there's a huge biotech cluster in San Diego, in Northern California, in Boston, in the Research Triangle Park. There's, I think, a growing biotech cluster in Chicago. In Tucson, Arizona, we have a nice biotech cluster. This is important because when you have a cluster like that, an industry cluster, what it is it's a critical mass of companies of the like-minded industry or companies that serve that industry, and that brings more people to that industry, that brings more people to that geography. It encourages more growth in that industry, so more startups start up there, more companies grow there, and that means that there's really great opportunity for you if you move to Northern California and you got a job with biotech company X, and for whatever reason you needed to leave that. Knowing that there's a big biotech cluster in Northern California, you would know that you'd be able to probably find another job pretty quickly because there's so many other biotech companies in that region. So you want to find out what are the industry clusters. And by the way, the best way to do that is to look into the chambers of commerce for the geographic region that you're interested in going to. And these are worldwide. This is not limited to the United States, by the way. And then we want to find out what this particular industry values. What about their skills and experience do they value? Your skills and experience do they value? What degrees do they appreciate? You know, of course, in medical physics, a master's degree is appreciated. But, you know, if you were to go and work in R&D, coming from the outside to go work in R&D for a company, you probably would need a PhD. So this is important to know. And what also do they consider to be important in terms of credentials, pedigree, awards, demonstrated performance, and how do they define performance? This is important as well. Other questions to ask as you look into the selected industries that you might be interested in. Who are the trend makers? What are the trends? What's the economics like? What are the major publications and conferences? What are the entry points and who can help me? This data that you are asking, these questions that you're asking or this data that you're seeking, you can get from informational interviews, you can get from LinkedIn, you can get from reading the publications, but these are the kinds of questions that you want to ask people when you're networking with them. Additionally, as I mentioned, you want to translate your experience into their language and present your experience in terms of the problems you've had to solve, the solutions you've come up with, and the results of the solutions. And if you can quantify those results, even better. Remember back to my resume when I said that I created and launched a strategic marketing program that resulted in 100% increase in customer recruitment in the first year. That's a great example of quantifying my contribution, the result that I was able to obtain from the solution that I came up with. What was the problem? The problem was inherent in my language. Obviously, we needed to better market the program, so I created a unique solution, which was the marketing campaign, which resulted in the 100% increase. And that quantification shows the context and significance of your problem-solving ability. And then the final piece of this, which is what you do in interviews. I call it the spin back because it spins back to them, to the interviewer. You tell them how this problem solution result experience, in using their language, of course, has uniquely prepared you to do X for them. This is really important. Now let's talk about finding and landing those amazing opportunities that would be right for you. And we remember that, of course, that most opportunities are hidden and they're accessed exclusively through the ability to know and articulate your value, to be able to know what the other party finds valuable through informational interviews. It's through networking, through building win-win partnership and appropriate self-promotion, and through reputation management. So in the information gathering phase, we're looking at what opportunities we might want to pursue. Let's identify the opportunities that might be right for us through networking, through informational interviews, and through research. We're looking to find out what opportunities exist and how people find out about these opportunities, especially non-hidden opportunities, which are advertised on job boards and ads and publications. And hey, in physics today, they have a whole career section devoted to, on their website, devoted to jobs and career development, as well as a great resource, which I'm going to tell you in a moment. But this is really useful information to find out about what are the trends, what are the types of degrees that different companies are hiring for. Really good and very useful information can be culled from that. You can also find out what skills are needed, what assignments are required, the culture of the organization, what kind of application or resume or CV is needed, what are the deadlines for the opportunities. We also want to gather information about certain regions and the organizations, like are they hiring right now? Or did they just have a big layoff? Quite frankly, if they just had a big layoff, if Company X just had a big layoff, that might not be bad news for you because they may have to have a quick they may have to quickly build up their capacity. They laid off 6,000 people, but they may still have a government contract. They may still have an order that they have to fulfill in some way that they need capacity, and you are the person who can help them with that. Did they just get a huge loan from the government or a huge grant or a huge contract from some entity? If they did, they're probably going to be increasing their hiring. So this is something to know about and to look for in your informational interviews and in your research. So as I mentioned earlier, you want to contact chambers of commerce and also regional economic development organizations because they are on the pulse of what's happening regionally in different industries. And you can actually email them and say, you know, I'm thinking about moving to this industry, this city or this region. I am an optical scientist. I'd like to learn more about the optics industry in your region. And they'll be more than happy to talk to you because quite frankly, you with your STEM background, and especially those of you who have higher degrees, the master's degrees and the PhDs, you are money in their eyes to regional economic development organizations and chambers of commerce because you are highly skilled workers who are paid a lot of money by these industries, and therefore it increases the tax base in that region. So every time I, as an economic development organization, recruits a new scientist or engineer with a master's degree or a PhD to come work in my city, I'm actually bringing money into the city. And it's a big circle that also helps the organizations, it helps the industry, it helps the companies grow, which helps them attract more people like you, which of course it helps to recruit more people like you to the region. So definitely these people who work for the chambers and the regional economic authorities, they will be happy to talk to you. But do also read the newspapers and the regional publications within the area. Look for localized content such as patch.com and other online sources that will tell you more information about that region. Talk to trusted contacts and mentors. Engage professional organizations. You know, you're a member of all these different, or at least one of these different organizations that you see in front of you. As a member, you have access to their membership directory. Go through the membership directory. If you see somebody is working for Procter & Gamble and that's of interest to you, reach out to them. Let them know that I saw that you're a member of APS. I'd like to learn more about what you do for P&G. I'm a member as well. I'm exploring my career opportunities. Maybe there's something I can do for you. Remember, when you network, you always want to offer something. Participate in regional organizations. For example, IEEE has numerous regional organizations, regional chapters. Of course, with SPS, they have the zone meetings, and they have the zone, the regional zones. Read related publications associated with that industry. So if you were interested in oil and gas, you would be looking at regional publications and publications that are devoted to oil and gas. So you can get a sense of all those questions, the landscape, the economies, the issues of hiring, the trends, and even the science and technology. Network on social media and in person. Go to related conferences. Join listservs and contribute to the conversation. Most important, of course, is networking. And those of you who have joined me before, you know what networking is, but just to give you a quick definition, in case you're unfamiliar, networking is not me meeting you at a conference and never speaking to you again. It's not me emailing you out of the blue and saying, do you have any openings in your company? It's me trying to build a meaningful, long-term, mutually beneficial partnership with you. It's a spectrum of activities. It begins with that first point of contact. It aims for that win-win where I'm providing you value just as much as you're providing me value in many different forms. Value could be in the form of information. It could be in the form of a referral. It could be in the form of a resource like, hey, my buddy knows this. I'd be happy to connect you with him or her. And it ends only when one or both of you drop dead. So that's networking. So it's not me mining for oil from your brain, right? I'm mining for oil, mining for gold from your brain. I'm not drilling oil from your brain. I'm not trying to get something from you. I'm trying to learn from you what problems you need to have solved so I can potentially assist you with that effort. That is honorable, and that's how you can build these win-win partnerships, and that's how you can get the information that you need. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to access what I call networking nodes for the industry of your interest. And what I mean by that is simply, if you're, again, interested in optics, you would look for optics-related industry nodes for networking purposes. And that could be a LinkedIn group, that could be an industry a cluster. For example, in Tucson, Arizona, where I'm located, there's an industry cluster devoted to optics. That could be various optical sciences organizations. It could be optical sciences conferences. It could be publications associated with optical sciences where you read the articles and then contact the authors or the people that are quoted in those articles. So all of those act as ways to find people to network with in your related industry. Now, or your interested industry. Now, what we want to do today is I want to kickstart, I want to jumpstart your career plan. So this is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you some homework assignments. No problem. These are easy homework assignments. These are things that you can do. So first of all, we're going to start looking at the skill inventory matrix. We're going to start analyzing the matrix, looking at the matrix. Remember, the matrix is everywhere, and it should be with you at all times. And we're going to start filling in our own skill inventory matrix. As we do our research, we're going to start learning the language of the industry that we want to go into, and we're going to look to translate our skills into that language. We're going to be keeping our eyes open for opportunities through networking, through our research, through our reconnaissance. We're going to use this awesome resource, the Careers Toolbox. It says for undergraduate physics students, but quite frankly, it is so useful. It's useful for non-undergraduates. So it's useful for people who are beyond the undergraduate. It's even useful for people who are not in physics. As I said, my degree is in math, but I've always been a physics nerd. So this is useful to me. It's useful, I think, to anybody. Take a look at this. This is a free resource that is available for you from the AIP Career Network. Take a look at it. I think you'll find it very useful. You're going to launch and you're going to maintain your LinkedIn profile. So this is part of kickstarting your career plan, because you need to be seen on LinkedIn. You need to be able to be searched for. If somebody's searching for experience in optics, biotech, and has a PhD in physics, we want them to be able to find you, to invite you to apply for a hidden job, for a hidden opportunity. We're going to network, network, network. And then here's your last homework assignment. I want you to identify 3 tasks. That's all, just 3 tasks. And really what you're doing is you're just identifying the tasks. You don't even have to do the tasks. But I want you to identify 3 tasks that you can take in the next 2 weeks to aid you in identifying opportunities that are right for you. And a great example of one of those tasks would be doing a quick search on LinkedIn for groups that are related to the industry that you think you would be interested in working for. If you're interested in working for the museum industry, do a quick search on LinkedIn for museum-related groups, and then join one of those groups or join a few of those groups. Right? Another task might be looking through the membership directory of your membership organization and finding a couple of people who you might want to talk to and build that win-win relationship with, to learn more about what they do, to learn more about how you might be able to help them in their efforts. So identify 3 tasks in the next 2 weeks that will aid you in identifying the right opportunities for you. This is how we're going to kickstart our plan. Now, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this talk, I want you to always have options open, options available to you, especially if in the future you decide you want to come back to academia. So we are never going to close the door on any industry unless we know for sure. I definitely do not want to work for company X or industry X because of what they do. But if you are interested in academia, we're going to keep the doors open. So we're going to keep the channels open. We're going to keep the collaborations open. What I mean by that is that once you transition into your job in industry outside of academia, stay connected with your colleagues in academia. Stay connected with your mentors. Stay connected with your former PIs if they're not zombies. If they're true mentors, if they're truly supportive of who you are and what you want to do, stay connected with them. Maybe you can even create a collaboration between the industry or between your company and your former alma mater. Maybe you can create opportunities for proteges who are working in your former lab to become interns in your group within your company. So keep those collaborations open. Keep the networking with academia. And keep your brand and reputation known in the academic world. And I want to give you a really great example of somebody who did this, and she was able to land a job in academia now. This is, of course, somebody who did this right after her postdoc, but this is so brilliant what she did. And I wrote about it in an article about how postdocs can market your value. So I can send that to you if you're interested, or you can easily find it. It was on Science Magazine. So Zoe is Greek. She is a Greek scientist. She is from Greece. That's where she grew up, and that's where she went to her undergraduate institution. She got her bachelor's degree in, I believe, a biosciences area in an undergraduate institution in Greece. And her goal was always to come back to Greek academia. That's where she wanted to go. Now, she did her PhD in Germany, and then she did a postdoc, I believe, at Yale. And she was away from Greece for a number of years. I think maybe about 5 to 6 years for the total for her PhD and postdoc. But her goal was always to come back to Greece. So what did she do? First of all, every time she knew she was going to be coming back to Greece on holiday, she reached out to her alma mater, to her former PI, to her advisor, and said, I'm going to be coming. Can I give a talk at the university? And every time she did that, she then would continue conversations with people at the university. She would reach out to new people at the university to talk to them. And pretty soon, as she made her way back to Greece, maybe once or twice a year only, she would also reach out to other universities, or pretty soon her reputation preceded her, and universities reached out to her and said, can you come and give a talk? So soon, her brand, her attitude, and her reputation was sort of floating throughout the Greek academic institutions. By the time she finished her postdoc, she had a job waiting for her in a Greek it was actually, in this case, it was a Greek government institution, but it was very similar to academia in that they do research. It's basically a research institution that's run by the Greek government. And the job was basically waiting for her, and it was there because they knew her by her brand and reputation, because she had always stayed connected to all the other scientists in the academic world in Greece, and she had established herself as an expert in her area of biosciences, and they had a specific need to hire somebody in that area, so they went to her first when the opportunity came open. Now, this is just one type of example of somebody who kept the channels open. But as I mentioned earlier, I just wrote an article about scientists who've come back to academia after years working in industry. They did it in many different ways. Some of them are professors. Some of them are what are called professors of practice. Some of them are program managers, where they're organizing internship programs or organizing programs that combine science with business, science with industry, engineering with industry, leveraging the knowledge, the deep knowledge and expertise they have about industry to create unique problems and, unique programs and solve unique problems within the academic ecosystem. That's why they were able to land their jobs. And so this is always an opportunity for you, but you have to keep those channels open. So don't close any door just because you're leaving that industry, that sector, or academia, or anything like that. Always keep those networks open, keep those collaborations going, because you never know, in 10 years, in 5 years, in 2 months, you might decide that you want to go back to academia. So in conclusion, quote unquote, industry wants you, right? It's just like that great poster, the government wants you. Guess what? Industry wants you. You have more skills, more experience, and more value of interest to industry than you may realize. And the way to unlock that, and the way to unlock those hidden opportunities and to break into those industries that might be interesting and exciting for you, is to first identify what your brand is, what your skill set is, what your unique value proposition is. Research those industries, find out what might be right for you, what might be a good fit for your brand, for your interests, for your loves. Cross off the list the industries and the organizations and even the regions that are not right for your, that because you've identified from the hate column. Cross those things off, and then communicate your brand in their language. Network, keep your eyes open for opportunities, keep the doors open to academia, because there's always an opportunity to go back if you choose to. So these are some resources. I'm going to send you an email following up from our webinar today, which is going to include these resources, so you don't have to write them down right now. But that careers toolbox is so amazing. I really do encourage you to take advantage of that. Of course, I mentioned my Physics Today career column, as well as my book, Networking for Nerds, which goes into a lot of detail about networking outside of academia. This is a survey. I'm also going to be sending it to you so you can fill out. We want to know your opinion about this webinar, about future webinars. We want to make sure that we solve the problem of helping you transition into a great career that you really would enjoy and do well in. So give us your honest feedback. And we want to also let you know that, of course, the webinars continue. Thank you, AIP Career Network. Our next webinar, mark your calendars. It's going to be in the new year, February 18th, 2016. The topic is going to be TBA, to be announced, but stay close. If you join me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find out what those are. Of course, you're connected to your professional society and to the AIP Career Network, so you'll be getting information about that as well. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This has been just a fabulous experience for me, talking, which I love to do, which is why I'm in this career. I identified that using my skill inventory matrix. But it's been fabulous for me to be able to reach out to you and help you find and land the careers that you really will do well in, the careers that you will be engaged with, the careers that you'll be productive in, and the careers that ultimately will provide you with the bliss that you deserve. And so please join me also in thanking the AIP Career Network and all of these organizations and Physics Today for supporting this type of webinar. Please join me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Twitter, join my LinkedIn group, Elena's Alumni, or join my group called Quantum Success Solutions on Facebook. And now, since we've concluded, I'm going to take a few minutes to answer any questions. But this webinar, again, has been recorded. You will get a chance to see this later if you want to. And I thank you so much for joining us. And now I'll take a few questions before we end for the day. And we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and answer as many as I can. And for those that I don't, I'll be able to answer them at a later date in a follow-up column within Physics Today. So somebody asked a really good question. I am a high school physics teacher, and I have a bachelor's degree in physics, and most of the jobs around where I live seem to either want an engineering degree or a master's in physics. Is there a better position to look for? What other fields could I look at? Finance, maybe? So that's a great question, and I'm really glad you asked that, because it brings to mind the idea that we as scientists and engineers and mathematicians, there's a challenge in hiring, which I didn't mention. And this helps me to address that challenge, which is Many jobs do not have the title quote unquote physicist, right? Or they don't necessarily say wanted physics degree. They might say we want an engineering degree, or we might want this type of experience. But very few jobs actually say have a title of physicist. So we need to make sure that we communicate what it is that we're good at, the skills that we have in physics and other types of things that we've done in a way that decision makers and hiring managers would be interested in. So this person asks, is there a better position to look for? And I would say it's not that it's a better position. What I would say is you need to start networking with people regionally, talking with hiring managers, talking with decision makers, learning what problems they're trying to solve. And in the course of your networking and having informational interviews, which is, quite frankly, just recently a column that I wrote for Physics Today, you can ask them, what do you prize? What kinds of skills do you use? And you can also insert into the conversation, oh, that's interesting. As a physics major and as a teacher, I did X. I learned how to do X, and as a result, I was able to do X, Y, and Z. Is this something that might be of interest to you? And you're communicating your unique skills as a physics major, as a teacher, in their language. You're appropriately promoting yourself at that moment, and they may see, yes, this teacher, yes, you're a teacher, yes, you have a bachelor's degree in physics, yes, we're not looking for somebody with the title physicist, but I could see how you could solve the problems in our company. So I think, great question. I think what you need to do is start networking strategically and asking questions in informational interviews or informal conversations so that you can learn what are these positions and what they look for. There are other fields. Certainly the financial sector hires physicists. That's definitely an option for you. But I would never have guessed that a company like a consumer products company like Procter & Gamble would hire somebody with a physics degree unless I had found that person myself and interviewed him and to learn about what he did for razors. And that's what I want you to be aware of, is that with that physics degree, you can go everywhere. You can go anywhere, but you have to start doing the strategic networking and informational interviews and research to find out what are the places that you would go and how would you translate your experience into their language so that they can understand why you'd be valuable. Somebody writes a question. So this is a question that's unrelated, but it's an important question anyway, so I want to answer this. How do I overcome the situation when I'm in a serious conflict with my PI that he refuses to write me a letter of recommendation? I have a PI who has serious mental issues. He is a liar. He is a zombie PI. And you know what? Thank you for writing that. First of all, you can take a look at an article that I wrote for Physics Today about zombies and haters and jerks and pigs. But I'm so sorry that you're in this situation. And this all, unfortunately, is a common issue, is that, of course, when we're graduating, especially with our PhD or with our postdoc, we're relying on our PI to write us a letter of recommendation. Our name is going to be tied to their name, to their reputation, and vice versa, potentially for the rest of our careers. And so how do we overcome this issue, especially when they're a zombie, when they're a lunatic, when they're a liar, when they're a nasty person, or maybe not even a person, maybe somebody from another planet or an undead. So first of all, this is where networking really comes in handy. And this is why I always say, don't network just when you need a job. You should be networking your entire career, because when you network and you find people, you will find other mentors who are in your field, out of your field, in your industry, out of your industry, and in other areas who could potentially help you in this scenario. So what you want to do is you want to build up an arsenal of people who do have your back, who do have your support, who can write letters, strong, positive, really great letters of recommendation and support for you when you are going for jobs, so that you don't have to rely on your mentor, on this zombie PI. In the case right now that you're in, you might not have other mentors. So what I would do is, if he is refusing to write a letter of recommendation, this is actually good for you, because the worst scenario to this potential problem would be that he would agree to write a letter of recommendation for you, and it would be a negative letter. We don't want somebody writing, don't hire this person. We want to know right off the bat that they don't want to write a letter of recommendation. And if they refuse, we're going to listen to them. They're telling us something. So this zombie PI that you have is actually somebody a little bit higher quality than some of the zombie PIs I've worked with, because I've worked with zombie PIs who've written letters of recommendation that say, don't hire this person, they suck. So if he's saying, don't write a letter of recommendation, I won't write a letter of recommendation for you, then don't accept him. Accept that. Look for other people in the department, other people that you've worked with who could potentially write letters of recommendation. And if it comes up in a job interview, why is it that this person didn't write a letter of recommendation? You can simply say they were really busy, and I felt that these other people were able to comment more broadly and more specifically about the skills that I know you're interested in, which is why I listed them. So that's a way to get out of that if at all possible. And there's a final question I'm going to answer. It was a resume question, and then I'll conclude for the day. Somebody asked, I am wondering if you would give some resume tips, whether I should do a one-pager or a two-pager, or it's better putting in as much experience or just focusing on the best experiences. So I believe I've done a webinar on resumes. If not, we'll be doing one very soon. I think I have that on my website. You can go there, elenalevine.com. But just a quick note about resumes for industry, because that's really what you're asking. Don't worry about the one-page business. If you have a PhD or a master's degree and you've done research and you've done all sorts of projects, you can go over one page. The only exception to that is if the job specifies one page only, or the company says one page only, or the company or the ecosystem. Let's say you're going to a career fair and the career fair says specifically only bring a one pager. That's only when you would have a one pager. Or, quite frankly, if you have less material, if you've had less experience, you will only have one page. You don't want to add to a resume fluff. Everything on the resume should have a strategic importance for the reader that will engage them and encourage them to bring you in for an interview. So, quite frankly, for an industry job, you will need probably more than one page because you'll have other things that you want to describe, both your business skills and your social skills, and your what I mean by that is your soft skills, your people skills, as well as your scientific and engineering problem solving skills. So you'll probably go to 2 pages. That's totally fine. And quite frankly, for R&D jobs where you're doing research for a company, which is very similar to doing research, there's a lot of differences, of course, but there's very similar to doing research in academia. They need to see a CV. So they need to see the full document, whether it's 20 pages or 10 pages, of all of your papers, all of your presentations, all of the committees you've been on, all of your grants. They need to see that. But for a job where you're not doing research, a 2 to 3 page resume where you summarize your publications and your presentations, that would be perfectly fine. And then what you can do is you can have all that information on your LinkedIn profile, where you list out all of your different areas of your publications, the extensive list of your publications, your presentations, your grants, the people you've mentored, and so on and so forth. Somebody asked if you should have an executive summary on a resume. I think you should. And if you email me, I will send you a free resume template, which will show you what an executive summary has on it. So I think we've gone over our time, and these were such great questions, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. If you have any other questions, feel free and quickly email me. I'll see what I can do to answer them. But if I can assist you in the future, please let me know. Please stay in touch, and please stay connected to your AIP Career Network, because they are there to help you find the career of your dreams. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, AIP Career Network. And this concludes our webinar. Have a fabulous day and have a great adventure in your careers, because I know you will have them. Thank you so much.